This is William Tincup and Ryan Leary, and you are listening, hopefully watching Inside the C-Suite podcast. We have Kim on today. Ryan, first of all, how are you doing today?
Oh, I am fantastic. It's a post Zach Bryan concert day.
Okay.
Not for me, not for me, but for the little one who purchased her own ticket surprisingly and then had no rides to or from
I love
the
this.
concert.
I love this.
Oh,
So yeah, so
See,
th- so so yeah, this was me being a great father, by the way,
yeah,
driving them 90 minutes to the
I think
concert.
he was forced.
I was forced.
Yeah.
But I put my foot down and I did not stay. I said, "You find your own way home.
I like
I
that.
don't care if you're 16."
Yeah, figure it out.
The boyfriend's stepfather, said, "I'll pick you up at 10:45." I'm like, concert's not over until like 11:30,
Yeah, you do
12.
you, homie.
I don't care. Your call.
This
Yeah.
generation with emergencies, I have this with both my kids too. It's like, oh yeah, um, especially like in theater or some stuff like that. It's like, oh yeah,
hmm
I need to have a full wardrobe for tomorrow. It's like,
Mm.
what, dude?
Should have done
You,
that 3 weeks ago.
you've known about this. So
Yeah.
yeah, well, your emergency is not my emergency. It's kind of the
No. But Kim, where are you based again?
I'm in Richmond, Virginia. So,
Oh, that's right. Okay. Well, you know Bruce Springsteen, right? You've heard of
yeah,
this guy. Okay.
that's right.
So so last night Zach Bryan brings out two artists mid concert.
yep,
One of them, Bruce Springsteen. She has no clue who he is.
yep.
She's like, they were booing him. They kept saying boo. I'm like, no, they were saying Bruce.
Oh my God.
How
It was
how old
like,
does this make you
wow.
feel that
Oh
that
my
that
God.
our sons and daughters have no idea who Bruce
I
Springsteen is?
like, he brought Bruce Springsteen out. You went to a Bruce Springsteen, like 3 songs he did.
This is one of the best
And,
concerts I went to. I went to Born in the USA at the
oh,
Cotton Bowl in Dallas. He played
unreal.
he played for 6.5 hours.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh.
That's
Seriously.
a long time.
No, it
That
was
is a
great.
long
It
set.
was great because it takes some set breaks and like people could go to the concessions and like everyone hung out.
hmm
And it was I saw the Stones in the same place, Tattoo You. And it was just like 6.5 hours. You don't think he has enough of that, but he'd play songs twice, 3 times, things like that. It was
hmm
he's
I've never seen him live,
he's
but I have seen the Bruce Experience,
ah
Oh,
the cover band for Bruce, which was fantastic,
ah
by the way. So I'm assuming Bruce was really good in person.
it was really good. It was really good. Kim, do us a favor and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you and your company, etc.
absolutely. Well, William and Ryan, thank you so much for having me. I'm Kim Sneeder. I've been with Allegis Group, which is one of the largest staffing companies for the
Yeah,
last, just hit 26 years. Um, but, but about 5 years ago, for Allegis, we developed CareerCircle, which is a workforce solutions company on a mission to change lives. So, really taking underrepresented communities and then
right.
connecting them to job opportunities. So
Oh,
I
that's
often
fantastic.
say
Is it a technology base?
it is. It's a platform that is taking
Mm,
everything that you need to build diverse talent pipelines and putting them into one ecosystem. But then the logic behind the scenes is looking at a 360-degree view of the candidate. Because think
right,
about all the times when the world was saying you're more than a resume, but what did
right.
TAC? So there's
A
a broken
resume.
system.
They
Yeah.
just saw the resume.
Right. So there was a
Always.
broken system where we said we need to give a 360-degree view of the candidate to really start to make an impact in this space.
Have you seen more of that become skills based
Yes,
over the last couple of
100%.
years? Yeah,
Yeah, even so much of what we do, it's not just connecting with the underrepresented communities, but it's also making sure they have the skills that they need.
right.
So in partnerships with like Google and Salesforce and IBM, it's making sure that they have the skills and that we translate what they learned into jobs that would align.
Last question, real quickly about this. Ryan and I do a news show on Sundays, and we've seen in the last couple of weeks just people getting rid of DEI departments, John Deere, Tractor Supply, Microsoft,
Yes.
laying off DEI teams, etc. You've studied this space for a long time. What is is this just the reality? Like they were always going to get rid of these things, or are they doing it in different ways? Like, what's your take? Even SHRM, got rid of diversity as a word, and now it's just no, it's inclusion. They got rid of equity. Sorry, just get them all
Right.
confused.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they flipped it to inclusion and diversity and got rid of equity. So it's like
Yeah.
it seems like that stuff's under attack.
Your timing is impeccable. I actually just put a post up on LinkedIn this morning because here's what I think happens often. It's whatever definition you tie to equity. So
Uh,
if people are thinking, gosh, equity means I have to hire X, Y, and Z person, it doesn't matter if they're qualified, that's not the right definition. And that's not what we mean by equity. So in the example I used this morning, my son is autistic. And
right,
so birthday parties are a no-go. I mean, it's terrifying for him and it's hard. And so recently he got invited to an ice skating party. In Ethan's mind, being cold and being on a set of knives is a really bad idea, right?
right,
So
right,
for 3 weeks, I order rollerblades. I turn the temperature down in the house, and we're learning how to skate and we're making it fun. So if Ethan decided to compete one day in ice skating, he might have had to work harder. He might have needed inline skates and some additional resources, but the race is going to determine whether he wins. It's still
right,
about the best candidate. And
right.
so, what I'm really trying to do in this space is calibrate how are people defining equity? Let's start there. And then look at the data, because here's the thing, our candidates are outperforming the general population by 7%. So, no one could argue, I want the top candidate. And by the way, I'm building products and services for a diverse market, so I need to represent that. I just think our definition of equity, I think the climate, it's all coming into this perfect storm that put the concept under attack. And we just need to reframe, start asking smart questions, look at the data. And if we remove the emotion and just look at the impact, don't we want more qualified candidates to choose from? You know? So I get really passionate about this. This one's personal to me with
Oh
my
yeah,
son, in call it 10 years. I need him to go out there and know he will have to work harder. But when you tap into those skills that he has that no one else has, he will
right.
positively impact an organization's bottom line at a far greater level than some of his counterparts can. Number one, he knows what hard is and he'll be up for it. And number two, he just has a specific set of skills that others don't have.
Okay. So, Kim, this show is all about you. It's all about your journey. You ready to go back and learn, William?
I am,
All about Kim.
I am.
This is going to be a fun one. So, Kim, the people that listen to this show are they're either in the C-suite, they're aspiring entrepreneurs, they're making their way up the corporate ladder, and they want to learn what motivates, what inspires, what has driven you through your career. So let's go back a little bit. Humble beginnings. We don't need to go to nursery school, but at what point did you realize you were going to go from worker bee to
Yeah, such a great question. And I think oftentimes we're so in our worlds doing our work that we don't think about that. So thank you for the opportunity to do that today. I think, you know, we say we don't need to go back to nursery school, but there was one defining moment that I think changed the trajectory of who I am as a person. We were in a really bad car accident when I was 5, and my mother ended up in the hospital for a year. I flew out of the back windshield of a car, landed on my face, not great. So even when you hear that story, you can visualize that I was not a
yeah.
beautiful child for a period of time. All my baby teeth were killed. They all were black. And it was really interesting because my mom, and it was a pivotal time. I was starting school. Kids aren't super nice all the time. And I remember her brilliant idea, which by the way was really bad, was to put me in pageants. See, I'm from the South. So when you have no teeth and a jacked up face, you don't need to be in pageants. But
No.
here's what she did inevitably was she taught me it wasn't what I look like. It wasn't the fear inside of me that I could truly do anything that I set my mind to. And that inspired this deep sense of, number one, I knew what hard was and I knew I would get through it. And I think it really ignited something in me. And so, gosh, even when I was in college, I come from a very humble upbringing, so I had to work to pay for college, and I was working at a restaurant. I was an international business major. I spoke 4 languages. Truthfully, I never had the money to travel, and I wanted to be able to travel, so that was a way to do that.
Right.
But I could meet executives, C-suite executives from these organizations. I would practice my languages. Every experience I had, even if it was waiting tables, became this opportunity to learn from brilliant
Oh, cool.
people. And I share that because I believe my life was a series of hard work, but also people that took a chance on me when they didn't have to.
Right.
Uh, and so, I started at Allegis, right? It was my first job when I graduated from college. And I don't even think I really understood what they did, but I knew people worked really hard there. And then you were rewarded for how hard you worked. And while I wasn't good at a lot of things, I would outwork anyone because I always had to. Um, so when you ask the question about when that pivotal moment was, 2 things happened. I was a great doer. And see, when somebody would say this to me in the past, it used to really irritate me because I thought number one was good, but number one's not enough. I wasn't a great leader. And so I could get to the finish line. I would outwork everyone, but I didn't know how to effectively bring people with me. And so I think the most powerful part of my career was when, number one, I got over myself and started to really look in the mirror to say, okay, well, what does that mean? How do I get better? And then going back to my story about my son, he was the best thing that ever happened to me for so many reasons. But he made me a better leader because I understood finally, it took me a long time, not to judge the outcome, not to judge what I was seeing, but to look at the root cause of it and then help that person. And so what I found is through my experiences with Ethan, I just became a better leader, a better culture builder. Um, and I had more people with me because it wasn't just about me being at the top. That makes sense.
Let's let's unpack that just a little bit. So we William and I talk about this all the time where we have people that do really, really good.
Yeah.
Maybe they're a salesperson at a company, and they're blowing quotas away. 5 years in, they're blowing quotas away. They're just crushing it. They get promoted to head of sales or VP of sales, and then they bomb
That's right.
because they don't have that leadership. Curious to get your thoughts there on, obviously they just don't have experience, but why? Why do people have that mental block when they go from extreme excellent doer into leadership?
Yeah.
Similar to what you're describing.
And it was me. I mean, I was in sales. I mean, you just painted a picture of me. I mean, really. And if you
Total coincidence.
and if you had painted
Hey,
that
Ry-
picture 15 years ago, I would have been offended. And now I'm
Ryan,
like, ooh,
Kim, Ryan started in staffing,
oh,
so
kindred spirit.
he knows that
All
world.
right.
So he started in
Actually,
staffing.
funny enough, if I slide over, because I haven't done, you probably can't recognize those or read them. They're from Conexa.
Oh my,
So I left Conexa a very long time ago. I started there in '07, and I left a very long time ago. But when we did the branding, the rebranding, we had Tenexas, and these two just resonated with me. And I said, I want those.
Yeah.
When can I get, like, if you ever get rid of them? And they sent them to me, and I loved them. This is '08,
Yeah.
'09, and I still have them, and I'm literally going to put them on the wall right behind me eventually. Right now, they're just going to kind of sit.
See, I think people in staffing are stronger. And I don't mean to offend anybody in corporate. That's not the bit. It's just when you
It's a
have,
different muscle.
it is a different muscle. The rejection, you get rejected by candidate, like two sides. You've got a hiring manager that rejects candidates, so you got to deal with
Hmm.
that. You got candidates that reject you. You're getting rejected on all sides. Whereas in corporate, it's still hard to manage a hiring manager and candidates, but it just doesn't seem like it's the intensity.
Yeah.
that staffing is. So I think you're born of a different fiber. People that come up through staffing, especially staffing 15, 20 years ago, where it was,
Yeah.
people just drop phone books, Rolodexes in front of people and say, all right,
The
call
yellow
them.
pages.
Yeah,
Follow
yellow
me. Get
pages.
after it. Get after it.
I remember selling ads for the yellow pages.
Call,
Oh, that was
call
so
Yeah.
everybody. Like,
awful.
where do I call? Well, you start at A and you go to Z. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And you
Yeah.
just call
Mm-hmm.
people and go,
Mm-hmm.
hey, how you doing? This is so and so. Listen, are you hiring?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Click.
yeah. Oh, good
Meanwhile, I
Lord.
was like, I've got
Kim,
all my teeth now, and I feel like I've done hard, so we're good.
you're
Give me
ready
the
to
phone
go.
book. But
I
Ryan,
could be a leader. I have my teeth back.
yeah, get the teeth back. They'll be proud of me now. But Ryan, I think your question is it's really good, and I think when you think about really strong salespeople, sometimes they know how to get out there. They're driven. They want to be number one. They know how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
The leadership piece comes in the second vein, which is can you teach, coach, and inspire other people?
Right.
And really focusing on that coaching because if it's so natural to you, but you don't know how to break it down and uncover where someone else is struggling, you will struggle as a leader. And then the second piece is if you naturally can see the forest through the trees, like I could listen to a client, I could hear what was broken and solve it. That's not a skill that everyone has. If you can't, number one, pause, have some empathy, understand the person might not be getting it, and then be able to bring them with you, you can't lead. And
You
so I
know,
think,
it's funny because we're talking about staffing, but really it's also you see this with athletes like Jordan. His first 7 years in the league, from 84 to 91, he was the best
mm-hmm,
scorer, and he would outscore everyone. But it wasn't until 90 and 91 that he learned to he can outscore everyone, but he won't win trophies. So it's like you have to make a decision at a certain point as a talented person. Well, what's more important to me? If it's sales quotas and winning awards and going on the President's Awards trip and going to Hawaii and doing that, cool. Like there's no shame in that. But if it's leadership and you want to win championships in an athlete's mind, you're going to have to play where
Rising
everyone else.
tides.
Yeah, you're going to have to. Yeah, you exactly. I
that's
want to get
right.
back to the moment where was the reflection forced on you in the sense of like you had a performance review and someone said, "Hey, you're awesome, but you're not a great team player, or your leadership skills are lacking." Like, was it an outside force that made you reflect, or did you come to it on your own?
Yeah, it's a great question. There was it wasn't a formal review. I was talking to a leader who I really respect, and he used the
Right.
words, and he knew me really well, and he just very blankly said, "Kim, you're a doer, and you're my best doer, but if you don't learn how to lead, it won't be here." Um, and
Hmm.
this is an evening conversation with a lot of passion and
Yes.
conviction behind it, you know.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Um, and so for about 3 weeks, I was really angry at said person. Um, but then I came back to it and I thought, I realized I'm pretty good with self reflection. Now I have to go
Right.
through the emotions of it, but at the end of the day, looking in the mirror, and what I realized is I was one dimensional. There was fear, or maybe better said, there was fear that I would be one dimensional. I understood what he said. And I understood two other things. Number one, I needed some coaching because some of it didn't come natural to me. When you've been wired a certain way for a long time, you have to learn new skills. And so I very intentionally went out and got some mentors that understood me, that would guide me, and that would give it to me straight. I didn't need anyone to sugarcoat it for me. I just needed a bit of help. So I think the second piece is are you willing to look in the mirror and really understand what your shortcomings are? And then the next piece is, and are you willing to do the work? Because I had to do some serious work to get better. And it didn't happen overnight. It didn't happen overnight. But when we built CareerCircle, I thought, we talk about you get a once in a lifetime chance to say, okay, over the course of my history, what have I learned? And if we get to build something new where I get to put it all into practice, what would that look like? And that's been really fun.
Let's talk about mentorship. So you commented that you went out and found mentors intentionally,
Mhm.
and you found, it sounds like multiple mentors. Maybe talk a little bit about that. How did you build it? But what would the advice be to build a network of mentors and how to do that with intention? Because I think some people have mentors, but they may not be with intention. It's just somebody who gets them and they can reflect off of them, but not by intention. So maybe let's dig in there a little bit.
Really good. So I think first you need mentors and sponsors, but let's start with mentors. So for the mentor piece, number one, right, I loved it when you said some people go and find mentors that they know like them or celebrate them. I would argue go find people that think differently than you and that have the skill that you don't have and that know you want some real honest feedback. Because if you really want to get better, I think first you need to look at what are the skills that I want to work on and be very specific. If you just call people and say, I'm looking for a mentor in this space, it is just like I'm on a list that you felt like you needed to call to check the box for someone. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about I want to get better at this skill. If you take your time and help me, number one, I'm going to put in the work to practice it. And then number two, here's how I might apply it to benefit you, right? May or may not benefit them. But it's really nice when it can be both sides. The second thing is, like I mentioned earlier, look for people that are different from you. I one time picked a mentor that I knew was so polar opposite of me. One could argue probably didn't really like me. You know what I mean? Like I'm a lot. And so for some
Hmm.
people that's entertaining and that's fun. And for some people it's exhausting. And one could argue I probably exhausted this person. But I knew I would get a different dimension of thinking versus just people that acted like me and approached life like me. But most importantly, if somebody's taken the time, you got to do the work. And I don't think we talk about that enough.
So I want to take us just a slightly different way. Ryan and I have had two really good friends work for Allegis, not to be named. But one thing that we have learned about Allegis from both of them is it's really like a family. And people will say that stuff. They'll write that stuff on a on their website or whatever. But they both had that experience with Allegis, and I want to get your take on that, like because you've been with them for a while, and I'm sure companies changed over time, and all that other stuff.
Sure.
But like the component of family, I usually call BS because it's like it's a business. Let's stop calling it. Let's stop calling it family. You have family. Maybe you don't like your family, but it's a business. Let's stop calling it that. But in these two specific instances, both of them have come out the other side going, no, it's like family.
Yeah. I will leave it up to people that are listening to define how you define family. What I will tell you is here's my experience at Allegis, and I think most would say this. Number one, you're going to get honest feedback. Like people are going to tell you when you're amazing, and they're also going to tell you when you need to get your head out of your butt and figure it out, right? To me, that's like a family. I'm going to give you the good, the bad, the ugly. When both of my parents died within 2 years, that entire place was full of Allegis employees, and they were there to support me in a very, very hard time. That's showing up for your people. To me, that's family. Investing in people. There were times where I said I didn't have, I mean, even building CareerCircle, I remember saying to the former president of Allegis, when are we going to talk about the elephant in the room, which is I've never built a company and you're putting me in this job. And I'll never forget both he and then my other mentor, who was the senior vice president, he said, you have the skills inside of you and we'll never let you fail. That's family believing, advocating, pushing out of your comfort zone. But if you're about to fall off a ledge, then we're gonna hold you. And so I share that to say sometimes the word family, if you describe it in corporate America, just sparks an emotion. So I'll tell you the behaviors that I've experienced here over 26 years. You can label it whatever we need to or want to, um, but I never left, and I don't intend to. I think it's hard to create that.
Two things on my end, Kim. One is, how do you stay at a company for 26 years?
So I know, right?
And I say that kind of jokingly, but serious too. And obviously, you've had many careers within.
That's right.
But how do you, even changing careers? You're still at the same company, and it's very different today than it was when we all started in the workforce. But how do you do that? What's the mindset behind that?
First of all, considering that yesterday someone at my daughter's school asked me if I was her grandma, maybe we could re-record this and not highlight
I
that I've been there for
I didn't
26
say that. I
years.
just asked how long you were
Sorry, I'm going back to this place of yesterday, and it's hard for me to focus
there.
every time I hear 26 years. So we're just going to move right through that. But
Shall we just call you Grandma Kim?
yeah,
Is that what
right.
you're saying?
Don't
You're like, hey, Granny, what do you think about that?
don't
Okay.
encourage this. Do not encourage this behavior. Stop.
Look, it's
Stop.
like fuel and
Uh,
fire on this podcast today. We're in good
Something.
company.
Yeah.
Um, so, Ryan, here's what when people will ask me about how I've stayed here so long. Number one, there are multiple different operating companies. There are multiple different
Mhm.
specializations. And so I call them assignments. I've done so many assignments at Allegis that it felt like moving to different companies. And I know we'll say, oh, well, it's Allegis. Building CareerCircle, a startup with no resources compared to when I was at Aerotech with all the resources in the world, could not have been two more different experiences, right? My time in national sales versus going into operations felt like a totally different company, a totally different experience. So I think if you go to a company and you stay in your comfort zone, you're choosing that, and that's fine. I mean, I'm not saying that that's good or bad. What I chose to do is take on as many assignments in different, from sales to operations to building a company, whatever it was. I had to very intentionally choose to move within the organization and gain new experiences, but not lose all those things that I just talked about. I don't know if you can find everywhere.
Ryan, did you had I thought you said you had two questions. Is that
I
right?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
So Kim, second question is career circles. So first time, we'll just say first time company founder builder. How do you approach that, right? So you've got the resources behind you, of course, and you've got a team that believed in you. But when you go from extreme doer to leader to now creating your own company, even though it's within a larger company, how do you approach that? How do you begin that process?
Yeah. So the first thing that we did was really look at the need in industry. If you're not solving a problem, you know, and then we looked at, okay, what would it take to build it? So building product. Um, from there, I quickly realized going into the space of diversity, equity, and inclusion advocacy. This is a really difficult problem that a lot of people have tried to solve, and it's hard work. So I knew early on that we needed, number one, smart people, for lack of a better word, gritty people that were willing to do the hard work and that could test and pivot quickly, all while doing discovery again with market fit. So, culture was really important to me. I wanted to have a culture where everyone had a voice. I wanted to have, because I needed to hear all their perspective. It's a very difficult space. And then we also wanted to make sure that people could show up authentically themselves. I wanted people coming to the company every day, bringing their full selves. Sometimes I'm in a hot pink suit, head to toe, with a lot of energy and a lot of passion because it starts with me, right? What is my true self? So I don't have to figure out how to fit into this corporate America where I'm wasting brain power on that. Um, so when I look at the company over the last 5 years, number one, product fit, always enhancing the technology so that we would test and pivot what's working, what's not working, and move fast. And then the people, hire really smart people and unleash them, and not just a piece of them, their full, authentic, wild sometimes selves, so we could get out there and do some great work.
So I want to talk a little bit about equity and not just the importance of equity, but is it Is it your experience that people either get it or they don't? Or is it something that through education you can kind of convince maybe someone that didn't understand equity to then understand equity? Or people that maybe come from backgrounds where they have had a lack of equity and they want to make things better. Like, is it experience based? Is it learning based? Is it genetics? Is it just something you either get like innately, or is it something that can be taught through a series of a series of events, etc.? Because again, we talked at the very beginning of the show about how we feel like equity is under attack. All of them. I mean, equality, belonging, diversity, inclusion, all of them are under attack. But we're focused on equity for a second. Now it's like, okay, well, how do we solve that algebra? How do we
Yeah.
solve the algebra of like, is it as simple as, okay, you don't get it, moving on? Like,
Yeah.
is it that simple? Like,
Mhm.
what's your take on kind of getting people to a place and understanding those that kind of get it really fast? Because like I would assume that some of your conversations and some of your team's conversations, they're already ready. Like they've been waiting for this call.
That's right.
And then there's a lot of people where you're pushing a boulder uphill and you might not ever be able to push the boulder all the way up the hill.
Yeah. It's a great point, and I think that boulder is heavier and the hill is steeper lately. I
Hmm.
mean, I'm just being super transparent, and I think it comes from number one, personal experiences, and then it also sometimes comes from a place of fear. Well, and then also just emotion around it. If your definition becomes, I have to make this higher because of equity, well, that's not the definition. Or if it's, well, if they get more, do I get less? Now I'm there are all these personal experiences and talk tracks that happen in people's minds. And so I often say I need to change a mind and a heart one person at a time. And I think the way to do that is through data. Because think about everything I just said. It's all built in emotion. I am having an emotional response, whether it's because of my personal experiences, my beliefs, my political affiliation, whatever it may be, it's leading to an emotional response that's significant. So when I look at the data, employers want the highest caliber candidate, right? Employers want higher productivity and culture. So if the data says, like if you look at CareerCircle starts, we've increased our starts by 53% year to date. If you look across hiring practices and hiring data, no one is increasing hiring by 53%. And a lot of the organizations didn't say, Kim, I'm partnering with you because of DE and I. They said, I wanted the highest caliber candidate. Remember, I said they're outproducing by 7%. So sometimes I'll tell employers, let me focus on giving you the highest caliber candidate. I know behind the scenes, I'm also going to help you reflect the community that you live in and serve. So for me, I'm staying with the data. And along the way, let me see if there's a bridge that I can understand where your emotional response is coming from or your response in general. And how can we think through that?
Kim, let's go back to leadership from the time that you've been doing what you're doing. So 26 years, right?
Great, Granny Kim.
Right,
I
Ryan,
mean,
will you
he's
stop?
killing me
Will
with
you,
the 26.
dude,
There's like a light
seriously,
show, backup
I thought you
dancers
were
coming out.
26 years old. I was going for
will you
26 years old.
stop saying how long she's worked in the industry?
Oh, she's yeah, no,
I mean, leave your
she's
feelings
got a
at the
lot of good
door when you join the
experience.
podcast.
Get the hint. Get the hint, son.
I just
Seriously.
wanted to ask, how has leadership changed in your view from 5 years ago? We'll go 5 years. How has leadership changed over that time frame? From the time you came into your first leadership role to now, how are you doing things, or are you doing things differently?
Yeah. Well, in full transparency, there was a point that it seemed like everybody on the team looked the same, acted the same, had the same background. I'm just being really
Hmm.
honest. So there was one style
Yeah.
of leadership, and it pretty much worked for everybody because everybody looked the same and had, all the things.
Right.
I'll tell you, when we launched CareerCircle and I went in my first meeting with the development team and I was leading them like I was sales and recruiting, And one of the guys tapped me and he's like, yeah, you need a do-over on that, you know? And so, but again,
Rewind.
we had a culture of transparency. So I'm like, thank you, Jim. Um, but I would tell you, when I look across the organization today, and when I think about my leadership, it is such a diverse group of brilliant individuals with different skills, different backgrounds. And so number one, I'm slower when I think about looking at the results, especially if let's say someone's not meeting expectations. Well, I'm going all the way back to figure out what is their superpower that I want to unleash even more, and then where is there a gap that I can then give them mentors, sponsors, coaching, resources, whatever they may need. So simply put, I would say there used to be, when I wasn't as strong, a broad, like a wide breast, stroke of here's how to be great here. And what I've learned is there's a ton of different ways to be great here. I want to tap into your personal way. So not only do you get the results, but you actually like coming to work.
Yeah, I kind of I feel like I make a comment. I feel like both of you are going to have a different take on this or a different thought on it. But how much of bad performance can be put on the company versus the actual person? And by put on the company, meaning we're not leveraging the person the way that we should. We're expecting them to do things they just can't do or shouldn't be doing.
I'll
You
go
want to go, William,
first.
or me? Okay.
I think it's 80-20. I'll use the 80-20 rule. I think it's 80% the company's fault and 20% the individual's fault. And why I think that is if you don't know the person's capabilities and you're expecting them, you've clearly communicated the what
Hmm.
the expectations, etc., then that's on you as a leader, as a manager. Uh, that's on you. That's on a company basis. If they just don't do it, well, yeah,
Right.
then there's some personal ownership
Right.
there. But I would lean heavily on, okay, if you're a good manager and a good leader, you've done the things to communicate, maybe even shown them how to do something and encourage them, hey, listen, you're going to try, maybe you'll find a different way or a better way. This is how I would do it. You've done all that hard work of communicating, maybe even over communicating, and then it's up to them.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, I would agree. My leadership team knows, don't think about parting with someone unless you can look in the mirror and know you have done everything in your power to make them great.
That's right.
Um,
It's easy. I mean, I say this, it's easy to blame the employee. It's
sure.
Lazy.
so easy.
Yeah.
It's lazy. That's exactly the right word, Ryan. It's lazy to then just say, "Damn it, it's Jim's fault.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's Lauren's fault, and we've just got to get rid of Lauren." And then that's
I've
the
al- I've always I've always found it fulfilling to actually look back at yourself and say,
yeah. I
"Oh,
made
we
that. That's
could
my bad.
probably do better."
Yeah, no, not probably. You could always do better. And so I
Right.
like that. I like that whether or not that's a written rule or kind of an inherent rule of like before you do a layoff, to really look at yourself and think to yourself, okay, do we give this person every opportunity to shine, to
yeah,
thrive? Do we really create an environment for them to thrive? Or did we just throw them into a pit and expect them to thrive?
that's right.
Um, Last question for me is wanted to see if you had kind of a mission statement or a coda or something like that. Like I have one, and I've had it for years. It's the same one. It's do right and fear no man.
Mm.
And it's an old phrase. It goes back ways, but I saw it at Del Frisco's behind the bar after about 12 martinis. So I
We
saw
do our
this
best.
You
Thank
sure
you.
sign.
that's what it said?
Yeah, I took a picture of it, Ryan. I'm good. So I looked at it and I'm like, that gives me the confidence to just do what I know in my heart is the right thing, and then let the chips fall where they may. And so it's given me like it was already in me. Like I just didn't have a phrase, and
Yeah.
it was already in me. Do you have something like that that helps you that drives decision making, etc.?
Yeah, about 5 or 6 years ago, I was at a executive wellness retreat, and we went through this really deep exercise around what was important to us, and we basically wrote a mission statement. I'm looking up because I ended up putting it on a scroll in my office, and it served myself and others courageously in pursuit of a joyful life. And a couple parts in there were important. Number one, I inserted myself because I have a tendency to give so much to others that if I'm not careful, I don't think about my own cup. So I put that in there. Um, and then courageously, because I think life gets really hard and fear gets in our way. But if we go after it with courage, and if we're scared, still do it, I think that's really important. And then it's wrapped up with the joy piece because life is short. And I think we have an opportunity for ourselves, for our families, for our companies. When you can create joy as a part of winning, life just looks easier and you're more fun to be around. And I think your family benefits as well.
Brian, you good?
I think we're good. Kim, that's a beautiful way to end. Thank you so much for coming on and gracing us with these great knowledge bombs. Thank you so much. Thank you all for listening, for watching. If you see us out there, come say hello, like, subscribe everywhere. And if you have a moment, you're on your favorite podcast app, feel free to drop a review. Those always help us as well. Kim, thank you very much.
Thank you
Appreciate
so
it.
much for the opportunity.